Ileana Cotrubas was one of the big divas of the 70s and 80s. And I actually took a masterclass from her in Denmark for about, 7 to 10 days? I think it was 10 days. We were selected from all over the world, only 20 singers. It was very interesting. I will tell you an anecdote at the end of this entire video. But first of all, we're going to look at Ileana Cotrubas singing Caro Nome. This is Gilda's aria in Rigoletto, and I feel like it's maybe sometimes underappreciated, underestimated. I feel like the coloratura sopranos, unless they do something big like the Queen of the Night, they're sometimes not as well respected as maybe some of the full lyric sopranos with those long lines and like full voiced. But let's take a look, and it's one of my arias that I've always sung, and I have a few things to say. And my dog, by the way, loves listening to beautiful voices too. She chills out there. Let's talk about that first part, that intro here. She was a tad early on the innamorato, but let's go back to her very first entrance. I think it's superb because it's very, very clean. It's not very high, but it's also kind of like in the passaggio. It's not easy to have that onset and to be very, very clean. And she's like no detours here at all. She's like so on point in these first few pitches here. So it's Gualtier. So it's kind of hard to keep resonance going forward without interruption. So it's very hard to go and then it has Gualtier. So it has all these weird sounds that kind of block everything. It's like, a half nasal sound like a L, and then Gualtier, Malde. Not easy, but she goes direct. I mean, there's no glottal onset, no scooping, and I appreciate that a lot. Again, one more time. It's got to be appreciated. So supported, connected. Right through that L. So I like she does a little scoop. So a little bit of from below on the D, but I think it needs something, right? I mean, Verdi composed this very intentionally, of course, that in the beginning it's kind of like she's thinking. All the flutes do these. It's almost like her, like being all in love, and yeah, she doesn't know who he really is yet, but I love how she phrases this line. Yeah, she was a little ahead there on the innamorato. She was there first. It's so lovely. It's just such a lovely piece. She's supposed to, she has this most innocent approach right here, like later when she sings her second aria, that kind of got destroyed. But here she's just so believing in, he's just this wonderful young man, not knowing who he really is and that he would break her heart. Interesting. That's very interesting. I never heard her version, but it's very interesting because she breathes almost every time. Caro nome che mio cor. It's very interesting. She breathes almost every single time except when she actually does breathe in the middle of the word. Festi primo palpitar. Does she go ramentar? Does she actually breathe there too? Oh, she didn't breathe in the middle of the sempre. She ramen. I mean, her timbre is amazing. I mean, like, okay, I can't compare myself to the caliber that she is, but like I would not opt to breathe there. I remember working with a coach once, and we worked literally for an entire hour just on those first, those staccato, those short pitches. And he kept getting on to me for an entire hour about connecting. And I'm like, what does he want from me? Because it's short notes. Caro nome che mio cor. And yes, you can even breathe and still have connection in the phrasing, but that was a tedious lesson, but I learned a lot during that. But she's breathing every single time. So I'm just, it's still kind of connected though, phrasing was. Okay. So I get it. She wants to come across like, she's so blown away and so in love. It's the heart palpitations, I guess. So she does. It doesn't even really sound like a trill. She does more of like neighboring tones. She actually does a little to sa kind of like that. That's interesting. I've never heard it that way. Oh, I love that last It's very low in the soprano voice. It's kind of like at the lower end where you have to you can still kind of grip your head voice. You go lower, you're going to have to kind of transition to chest voice. I love the placement. She actually almost, not a lot of opening vertically, like from the outside, which you can see. It's still a lot of vertical space back here in the pharyngeal space. But the teeth, it's almost like you don't want to cover your teeth. You want to be open, you want to be forward. And you can see that when you kind of see a little bit of a smile. Not too much horizontal, but like, versus, Not a lot of portamento. Okay, interesting approach too. She doesn't do a lot of really soft parts. I always feel like those high, long pitches. I mean, of course, this is how it's written. You can do whatever you want with it, timing-wise. It's very rubato. This entire piece is very rubato, meaning, rubare in Italian means to rob. And basically, you're taking a little bit of time away from here and you're adding it there. So it's not just strictly in time. You are very free to move through the time, through the meter here. This is very interesting, though. Like, not a lot of, I always... So I always, a lot of dynamics. So she basically just kind of moves through it. It's beautiful. And, I think every singer needs to find their own approach, but she's definitely doing it in a unique way. And she's connecting entirely through the phrase. I always do it like, sospir, caro. Wait. So I always did like, Caro Nome. And I'm totally not warmed up, but doing kind of more and not plowing through it. She's not plowing through it. No, she's not. It's beautiful. It's just her timbre and her voice is just superb, excellent, very resonant. Just the timbre, everyone has a unique timbre and her timbre is very beautiful, but unique approach too. Okay, what's she gonna do now? I feel like she's doing it in a very simple way, but in a very beautiful, simple way. And I always say, it's better to do something simple, but very beautiful than to try to do a lot of really fancy stuff. And it's just maybe not very accurate or something. She's opting for the more very direct approach, not too much showy, which I appreciate a lot. A lot of times sopranos will go even higher here on that. Oh, and this is so hard again, going through the passaggio all the way down to that main break in the voice. That's how I always do it. I go even a higher one, which, you don't have to. I'm sure she goes maybe a little higher later. And then to that, those runs, those scales from the very top to the very bottom, I feel like the hardest part there is always that bottom part. We don't want to go for a soubrette or a coloratura soprano. I feel like it's too heavy. We don't want to sound like very chesty. So you got to stay in character. At the same time, you got to just go low, and there's just a limit to how low you can actually get your head voice and still actually have some power in it. Yeah. That's hard. That's so hard. That run, to be that intonation there, it's short, and there's actually Is it the strings that played along? You couldn't even hear it really well here. Caro nome tu sarà. And again, that's so hard. Caro nome tu sarà. Whatever. Oh, she's leaving out the top one. She takes a breath there. I always did the bottom ones, the scale upward short. And then I took a breath. She's legato. Okay, now we come to the cadenza, which I have a story about too, but it's a very 70s approach, I feel. Today it feels almost like opera singers want to shock you even more. It's like anything in any music. It's like, okay, let's just more effect. Maybe that's not necessary. Maybe we could just just focus on the sheer beauty and not have to do a lot of fancy things all the time. I always feel like, oh, let's go higher, let's go even faster. Maybe that's not always the most beautiful. Okay, let's listen to her cadenza, and then I'll tell you my story about that cadenza. Okay, she doesn't even go higher, which maybe that's all not necessary. That's hard. And then most of them go higher. I will actually put the link below. I do have a very old recording, like where I participated in a production of me singing Caro Nome. I will put the link below. Audio is not the best, but this is very interesting. No, not a lot of dynamics either. It's so resonant. And then normally you would hear something like that. She doesn't go there. She just stays right there. And not even another breath either. And then she goes up, and then the choir comes up. Okay, here's my story about that cadenza, that last one. I participated in an international opera singing competition in Switzerland. I drove there, I don't know how many hours, it was like 6 hours drive or so. And then I stayed at a very cheap place overnight, and it was very cold there. It was like kind of a private, like a farm, kind of like. And there were a lot of other people staying there too. And I had this room, and it was very cold, and it was in the mountains. And I hardly slept because it was like I was freezing in there. And I think it was in the summer, but because it was high up in the Alps, it just got very cold at night. And I just was so cold, and there was no heater on either. And then I arrived there to the competition. I did my warm-ups and stuff, but my voice was just not well. And I was very, very tired too. And so I sang. I think everything went really well. And then on that final cadenza, there's nothing happening. It's just your voice. You're basically singing solo for a minute or so. Maybe not a minute, 30 seconds, maybe 20 seconds, but it's an eternity when it comes to an aria. And I go to that high pitch, beautiful dynamics, that I land on that final pitch, piano chord comes in, and I'm sharp. I think I was sharp. Yeah, this is what happens a lot. Like when you sing as a soprano, when you sing high, you tend to go sharp rather than flat because, a lot of support and there's tension going on. And I just ended up flat, and that basically cost me everything. And I didn't continue in that competition. I was like, dang it, man. Like everything was really good, but just that was like a no-go. It was like okay, no. Ending up sharp on that last pitch and not being with the piano. Yeah, that's my story. And I have actually another story about Ileana Cotrubas. As I said, I participated in one of her master classes, and they hand selected 20 singers from all over the world. You had to apply, you had to send recordings. This was in approximately 2006, I'd say. Between 2005 and 2006. No, it wasn't 2006, I'm pretty sure. Because that's when I went to the Stuttgart, music conservatory, the Musikhochschule. And during that time, I applied there. And I was accepted, which was very exciting. I traveled to Denmark, and there were 20, including me, 20 other, very amazing singers. And Ileana Cotrubas always had a history of being a little bit difficult. She actually quit some productions because she was not happy with the stage director and different things. So she was known to be a little difficult. So in that competition, she was like, not competition, that masterclass, it was 10 days. And there was a big concert at the end. And it was not just her. It was basically Ileana Cotrubas. And her husband was there too. She's married to Manfred Ramin, who is a German conductor. Yes, they're both still alive, actually. I don't know if she still does master classes, but she did that for a while. And he was very nice. And she had her favorites. And her, also Dalton Baldwin, who is an amazing pianist and German lead coach, actually. So when I worked with him, it was so wonderful. And he was like, Freya, you have a very beautiful instrument. You're so musical. And when I worked with Ileana Cotrubas, she did not like me. She liked the big voices. So I'm more, like a soubrette, kind of a little bit like she was. A lighter voice, not a heavy, dark voice. But she kind of was she liked those full lyric sopranos. And a couple of us, we actually left early because one of the other girls who was there, she told her basically, oh, you're too fat. You're never going to find a job as a singer, which was crazy. She cried. That girl cried. They picked those singers. So obviously they were all good singers. And for me, she also told me, you have no voice. You have no voice. You're not going to find work. I did find work after that incident. But I left early because I was like, why do I want to deal with this? Someone being so mean. And she was mean about it. It wasn't like, she's like, I'm there to learn something. And I'm not there for someone to tell me, you have no voice. I'm there for someone to tell me, how do I achieve better resonance? Maybe if she doesn't like the sound, what can I do to sound more desirable in your terms? That's what a good coach and a good teacher does. But it traumatized me a bit, not really long term, and she had this, she was kind of known for being a little bit mean. So that's nonetheless, I always loved her as a singer. It was kind of incredible when I was working with her and I was sitting in, even, watching her work with the other singers. It was so cool to actually hear her voice. And as she was kind of demonstrating little phrases, I mean, she was older than already. She's now, I think she's like well in her 80s. It was so cool because when I studied my role of Susanna from Le Nozze di Figaro, was my first role, my first full role, I always listened to her as Susanna. That's the production I watched all the time. And then to actually hear her sing passages in that masterclass, it was like, ooh, it was so cool. It was such a surreal feeling, But I just didn't appreciate how she treated some of us, and she had those favorites. So anyway, that no less is she, and was she always, a very amazing singer. The beautiful timbre. I just love how her voice opens up on the top and just floats. And her range is very consistent. Her resonance throughout her range, which, is created by really nice tall space in here in the back, by good placement, nice open vowels. Not too much pressure against the vocal cords, but a nice balance between your support and that, I always say it's like this equilibrium. You push too much outward, it's not good. You keep too much in and have too much subglottal compression, it's too tense. You have to have that perfect balance between the air that's subglottal, that you're actually moving outward, and that closure of the vocal cords, and then what comes after that, that amplification, that resonance where you add overtones. So if you like geeking out about vocal technique, consider joining my community where we talk not just about opera, but about all things singing, about your voice. I will put the link below. And until next time, our friends, always enjoy beautiful voices.